Hello and welcome to Safe Pasture. My name is Sherry Hammers and we are now continuing on a book by Andrew Murray called The Master's Indwelling. And we have been basically going chapter by chapter, but every episode is a little more difficult they're long chapters, so we're sectioning off the chapters into their different parts just for time's sake. But today we are starting on a new chapter called Waiting on God. And Andrew starts off with Psalm 62, verse 5. My soul, wait thou only upon God, for my expectation is from him. The solemn question comes to us, is the God I have a God that is to me above all circumstances, nearer to me than any circumstance can be? Brother, have you learned to live your life having God so really with you every moment that in circumstances the most difficult, he is always more present and nearer than anything around you? All our knowledge of God's word will help us very little, unless that comes to be the question to which we get an answer. What can be the reason that so many of God's beloved children complain continually? My circumstances separate me from God. My trials, my temptation, my character, my temper, my friends, my enemies. Anything can come between my God and me. Is God not able so to take possession that he can be nearer to me than anything in the world? Must riches or poverty, joy or sorrow have a power over me that my God has not? No. But why then do God's children often complain that their circumstances separate them from him? There can be but one answer. They do not know their God. If there is trouble or feebleness in the church of God, it is because of this. We do not know the God we have. That is why, in addition to the promise, I will be thy God, the promise is so often added, and ye shall know that I am your God. If I know that, not through man's teaching, not with my mind or imagination, but if I know that in the living evidence which God gives in my heart, then I know that the divine presence of my God will be so wonderful and that I can live all my days in, I skipped a line. I know that the divine presence of my God will be so wonderful and my God himself will be so beautiful and so near that I can live all my days and years a conqueror through him that loved me. Is not that the life which we need? The question comes again, why is it that God's people do not know their God? And the answer is, they take anything rather than God. Ministers and preaching and books and prayers and work and efforts, any exertion of human nature, instead of waiting and waiting long if need be, until God reveals himself. No teaching that we may get and no effort that we may put forth can put us in possession of this blessed light of God, all in all to our souls. But still, it is attainable, it is within reach, if God will reveal himself. That is the one necessity. I would to God that everyone would ask his heart whether he has said and is saying every day, I want more of God. Do not speak to me only of the beautiful truth there is in the Bible. That cannot satisfy me. I want God. In our inner Christian life, in our everyday prayers, in our Christian living, in our churches, in our prayer meetings, in our fellowship, it must come to that God always has the first place. And if that be given him, he will take possession. I just want to stop right here and interject when he was talking about people coming to him and saying, how come I do all these things and I still don't feel like I know God and I just don't feel like my prayers are getting answered. And he was talking about not knowing God. Well, I don't remember where it is in the Old Testament, but it talks about my people perish for a lack of knowledge. And certainly if you don't know God, you're certainly at the top of the list of those who will perish, because we are coming to a day and a time that if you don't know God, if you don't know how to hear God for yourself, you will be swept away with the deception that the enemy is bringing to this whole world. And it is subtle, and he's been at this for years to bring this plan about, to deceive the masses. And if you don't have the light of God in your heart, then you're walking in darkness. It says that the wicked walk in darkness and they stumble and don't even know what it is they stumble over. And that is, of course, my loose translation from memory. But it is so imperative that we know God. It is so important. And it's really easy to say, well, I do all these, I check the boxes, and I don't see God taking care of my situation or my petitions. And another thing that he talks about that he's going to go into more depth on is waiting on God. We live in such a microwave society that to wait on God seems like a big waste of time, because we can think of a million things while we're waiting on God that we need to attend to. And some of it isn't, I'm not saying any of it's more important than God, but some of it's so trivial, it's just happens to be what we want to spend our time doing, just passing the time, like a hobby. Being on social media, seeing how many likes we got on a post, just trivial stuff like that does not matter to your life. You might think in the long run it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter today. It doesn't matter in 5 minutes. And really, a lot of the social media, especially trying to get the little dopamine hits of, oh, somebody liked my post, that's really an addiction. It's an addiction to self, and it just feeds that self-indulgence. But anyway, getting back to the topic at hand, I just want to see where my stopping point is. Okay. He says, oh, if in our lives as individuals, every eye were set upon God, upon the living God, every heart were crying, my soul thirsteth for God. What power, what blessing, and what presence of the everlasting God would be revealed to us. Let me use an illustration. When a man is giving an illustrated lecture, he often uses a long pointer to indicate places on a map or chart. And today, I guess, we have PowerPoint, we have the little red laser pointers, but you get the idea. He says, do the people look at that pointer? No, that only helps to show them the place on the map. And they do not think of it. It might be of fine gold, but the pointer cannot satisfy them. They want to see what the pointer points at. And this Bible is nothing but a pointer pointing to God. And, may I say it with reverence, Jesus Christ came to point us, to show us the way to bring us to God. I am afraid there are many people who love Christ and who trust in Him, they trust in Him, but who fail of the one great object of His work. They have never learned to understand what the Scripture saith. He died that He might bring us unto God. There is a difference between the way and the end which I am aiming at. I might be traveling amid the most beautiful scenery, in the most delightful company, but if I have a home to which I want to go, all the scenery and all the company and all the beauty and happiness around me cannot satisfy me. I want to reach the end. I want my home. And God is meant to be the home of our souls. Okay, I got to stop here and just share this little tidbit with you. I recently was listening to a very condensed version it was like an audio drama of The Pilgrim's Progress. And of course, if you've ever read the book, this was very, very short. But they hit some of the key elements of that story that just about everybody knows or that have been in movies. And anyway, at the end, there was someone narrating, and they said, and Christian and Hope talking about the celestial city, and he was talking about they crossed the Jordan, and then they went up and they were showing their certificate from the prince that had their calling, that they were summoned. And then he said, and Christian felt within his heart that he had finally come. And then they have the boy playing Christian. He says, home. And maybe I can't convey it the way it hit me when I heard that, because It just really spoke, because after all of these things that Christian had been through, they said, and he finally came, and then Christian says, home. It just struck my heart, because that is, if you're born again, if the Spirit of God lives inside of you, then that is where your heart is. It's in that heavenly home, that celestial city. You won't feel like you're ever home until you are at home fully and completely in every way with God. And right now, we are walking in this earth, but this earth is not our home. A lot of times we forget that. And we build nice places and comfortable places. And I'm not saying any of that's evil, but we forget that our true journey, the journey's end, is heaven. And that what we're doing here right now is the kingdom work while we're still in the land, in the territory of the enemy. But he said, God is meant to be the home of our souls. That's the only place that you'll have true and abiding peace. He says Christ came into the world to bring us back to God. And unless we take Christ for what God intended we should, our religion will always be a divided one. What do we read in Hebrews 7? He is able to save to the uttermost. Whom? Them that come to God by him, not them that only come to Christ. In Christ, bless his name, we have the graciousness, the condescension, and the tenderness of God. But we are in danger of standing there and being content with that. And Christ wants to bring us back to rejoice as much as in the glory of God himself, in his righteousness, his holiness, his authority, his presence, and his power. He can save completely those who come to God through him. All right. He goes just for a little bit more. He says, now, just a very few thoughts on the way by which I come to know God as this God above all circumstances, filling my heart and life every day. The one thing needful is, I must wait upon God. The original is, it is in our Dutch version, and it is in the margin too. My soul is silent unto God. What ought to be the silence of the soul unto God? A soul conscious of its littleness, its ignorance, its prejudices, and its dangers from passion, from all that is human and sinful. A soul conscious of that and saying, I want the everlasting God to come in and to take hold of me, and to take such hold of me that I may be kept in the hollow of his hand for my life long. I want him to take such possession of me that every moment he may work all in me. That is what is implied in the very nature of our God. How we ought to be silent unto him and wait upon him. Well, I'm going to stop there for today because, like I said, it's a long chapter. But I hope that this has deepened your walk with God, that you'll see just in maybe in nuances, but maybe in major ways, that the things, the adjustments, the course corrections that you need to make in order to deepen your walk with God. God is inviting us constantly. He's always there waiting for us to come. You know, I forget where it says, draw near to God. I think it's 1 Peter. I think it's 1 Peter 5, but it says, draw nigh unto God, and he will draw nigh unto you. So he's waiting for us to take these steps toward him. And we just really need to follow through. You know, like I said earlier, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Well, now you have a little bit more knowledge. And the thing with when God gives you knowledge, you are accountable for it. So now you get to make a decision. Do I want to go forward toward God, or do I just want to sit here in my complacency? I know that may sound kind of harsh, but we all have a flesh, and our flesh drives us toward the complacency side. Anyway, that is my portion of this today, but I wanted to let you know, and this is coming up very soon as the making of this video, that there is a movie, if you haven't heard already, called The Sound of Freedom. It's about a man who went from being a Homeland Security pedophile hunter, basically, to someone who is rescuing children out of child trafficking. And the movie has a purpose and an opportunity for you to get involved as well. I'm going to leave the link in the description, and Jim Caviezel comes on he's the one starring as Tim Ballard, the Homeland Security officer, and he has a message for you on the importance of this, the importance of getting people into the theater. They really want to make it a big day. July 4th is when it opens. There's a crowdfunding opportunity, and all that will be in that link that I'll leave in the description. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon, and God bless.